What's poppin', everybody? It's your boy G watching Keeping This Tech. I gotta be really quick on this video because I'm shooting on the ZVE1 4K 60, but I also have it connected to the monitor and control app. So you know that is a recipe to get this thing to freaking melt, okay? Guys, this video is a bit of a test for me, but I wanted to share it with you just in case you guys happen to be in a similar situation and you're trying to figure out, is 1.8 worth it versus 2.8? Like, which one should you do? Okay, so let me break it down. I've had the 21.8 forever, since 2019. And recently I updated to the 16 to 25 G lens right here. This lens is a phenomenal lens. Now, what I'm gonna get with this lens is the ability to have a zoom range, right? Now, I've always had a zoom lens and the 21.8. I've either had the 17 to 28 or the 16 to 35 power zoom, but now I'm thinking about consolidating them. So what do I lose by only relying on a 2.8 aperture? Now, there is about a stop and a third of light. Now, what is that difference? What does that mean? Well, I'm also filming or capturing the screen recording of the monitor and control app so you guys can see what I'm seeing here for the settings. So to get this 2.8 to look right with this lighting setup, and I'm shooting in 4K 60, I had to have my shutter at 1/125th. That's, you know, double your shutter speed, or, you know, that, what do you call that, shutter angle type of equivalent. We need to make sure that motion blur is smooth, and so you want to do that. Now, because that is at 1/125, it actually darkens the image if I wanted to keep the ISO at the base ISO for S-Log3, which is 640. Now, to show you what that would look like, I can go down from 1250, and it'd be one stop of ISO is what it is, because for every 3 steps is one stop of light. So you got 1, 2, 3. You see how the image just darkened right there? And if you're shooting an S-Log3, you definitely don't want that. Let me put the histogram so you can see the difference in the way the histogram behaves too. Hold on, let's move it around here. Okay, so you see the way that behaves when I bring it back up to 1250. 1, 2, 3. So it kind of moves over there on the histogram. Okay, so that's, again, me shooting 4K 60 and having to double my frame rate, and I have to compensate for that light. You know, on this lens, the 16 to 25 f2.8, I'm not going to have the ability to go down to 1.8. I am filming on the 21.8, like I mentioned, so you'll be able to see how that all changes around. But let's say we want to be rebels here and, you know, F the rules, right? Do whatever we want to do. We could technically get away with 1/60th for a talking head shot like this. That wouldn't be a big deal. And we could go ahead and bring down that ISO, 1, 2, 3, again, one stop of light. And so we go over here to our shutter speed, and it also happens to be 3 steps to 1/160, right? Or 1/60, you should say. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're at the same exposure and we're at the base ISO, but again, we're not following that 1/60 rule. And I guess if we're just at 1/60th of a second, talking head, again, it's not a big deal. But check this out. What about if we were to go ahead and jump back over to 1/125, follow the rules, but compensate for that lack of light by bringing down the aperture to 1.8. We can actually technically bring it down to f2, and that'll be 1, 2, 3. That's one stop of light. That actually gets us back to where we were. But if we want that extra, I mean, we might as well just go to that 1.8, right? Because that's why we have this lens for. And now we're maintaining that double the frame rate rule. This looks probably the most aesthetically pleasing out of all the settings, just because of that additional background blur that you get. You know that you're going to be at 640, so it's going to be relatively minimal, if any noise at all. This is optimal, but if you wanted to zoom in and zoom out, you kind of can't. I mean, you could crop in post. You can see here the wide shot of the space on the iPad, but the actual footage that you're seeing is actually cropped into the frame that I want. But that's the benefit of shooting in 4K and also having a really good sensor like what's found on the ZVE1. But let's go back to 0.8, because ultimately this is about the 16 to 25, right? And let's go ahead and go to that. We'll keep it at that, and we'll have to just bump up the ISO, right? Does this look bad? Could you tell the difference in noise? I don't know. What do you think? What would you guys do? Would you guys choose the 1250? Bumping up the ISO, adding a little bit of grain, maybe if it's even present. I don't feel like there's a lot of impact that 1250 makes versus 640. I think that's probably doable. Or would you go ahead and just break that 180 rule and do 1/60 to keep your ISO low? And then who cares about motion blur if you're just doing talking head stuff like this? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully this helps you guys out. I'm still trying to figure out if I'm gonna end up keeping both of these or if I'm gonna go ahead and sell the 21.8. See, the original plan was to sell the 21.8, but damn, this lens is actually, it means a lot to me and I'm having a hard time letting go, if that makes sense. But that might just be me. I'll check you guys out in the next one. Peace.